Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced, and if you've been enjoying this series of Intro to SQL videos, make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and also make sure to, well, follow me on Twitter and follow me on LinkedIn. But this one video we're going to do is we're going to focus on aggregate queries. So to find the SQL for this particular lesson, it's going to be in the ag.sql file. And again, you can find this REPL in the video description, so that way you can go find all these files and follow along. Okay, so again, I now have that code in my main.sql as a reminder that in REPL, the code has to be in your main.sql file, and then you run it. Okay, and you click this little run command and it will run the SQL. So again, in this case, what we're doing is we're now setting up a sales table. So once again, we have an ID field, which is going to be a primary key integer. Okay, we have a salesperson, which is going to be a text. So that's going to be the person who did the sale. A region, so different salespeople are covering different regions, which will be also a text field. And an amount, which is a integer field. Okay, so basically a number. And a sale date, which is going to be the date that something was sold. Okay, so that's going to be a date field, so that means we can do like date comparisons and in-betweens and things like that. Now, we're going to insert 5 records again. Okay, keep it real simple. Okay, so there we have basically 2 people in sort of the north region, 1 person for the south, east, west region. Okay, so we're going to insert those 5 records, and again, we can express sort of which data we're inserting. So notice we have 5 fields, but we're only inserting 4 at a time. Okay, cool. And now let's start examining what we're going to call aggregate queries. So aggregate queries are different than your normal query because we're not just grabbing the row of data. We're actually now starting to manipulate the data. So in this case, what I want to know is like the result of an operation across multiple columns or multiple rows. So I might want to know, hey, what is the total sales of all my salespeople, or maybe the total sales of a particular region, or there's going to be different ways we can do this. So we'll examine each one at a time. So this first one is going to probably be the simplest thing we can do. Okay, and that's count. And count just counts the number of rows. So when I do this and I say, hey, count, I'm just basically saying count all the rows. So count star is just going to say, hey, what are the number of rows in the table? So it's just how much stuff is in the table. So if I run this, I should get the number 5 because there's 5 rows in the table. So if I run this, and I get the number 5. Okay, although I see that I have another query that I did not query out somewhere. I did not comment that out, so let's comment that out. Spoilers. Okay, so I am counting all sales. So essentially what this just does is count is just say, okay, hey, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now if I wanted to count just certain ones, I could do a where clause, and it'll only count the ones that satisfy the where clause. So that way maybe I want to know how many people are from the north. So I could say something like, hey, select count from sales where region equals north. Okay, and that should get me 2, right? So if I run that, stop, run again, okay, and see I get 2. So in that case, it's going to count anything that's part of the result set and tell you what the number of records are in the result set. Okay, so we will clear that out. Click the little trash can there to clear things out. Right, just got to stop this so I can clear that out. Boop. Okay, so let's comment that one out. And now let's go do sum. Now sum is going to add everything in the column that you specified. So in this case, I'm saying, hey, I want to get the result, the total of everything in the amount column. Okay, so total of everything in the amount column. Okay, so if I do that and I hit run, okay, I get 2,900. So that's going to be the total sales of these numbers right here. But again, I could also use a where clause to specify, hey, I only really want to know what the sales are for north. So again, I can be like, the sum of the amount column where region equals north. Okay. And then again, that's just going to get me the sum of 500 and 800, which should be 1,300. So I'll try that out. Stop, run. And yeah, see, I get 1,300. So again, I'm saying, hey, I want the information I want is the total of this column in the result set that I get from this table when I apply this where filter. Okay, so let's stop that, clear that out. So that's the sum aggregate query. Then there's average, again, pretty straightforward. It's going to average it out. Okay, so it's just going to take the average of all the sales. So if we run that, we get the average. Okay, so again, you're trying to see like what it's doing. It's going to return you one thing. It's going to return you one thing based on taking the specific column that you specified And again, you can do multiple aggregations in one query. Like I could sit there and say, hey, I want the sum, the average, okay, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put here on this line. Actually, we'll just leave it at that. Okay, I want the average amount, and I want the sum of amount. Okay, so I can ask for multiple aggregates. And again, I can also apply the where clause, where a region equals north. And I'll get all that information. So now if I run this, clear this out, run it. See, in this case, it's giving me the average, which is 650, and the total is 1,300. So you can see that I can get a lot of information this way. And generally, it's these kind of aggregate queries that are the things that power data visualizations, because often data visualizations are oftentimes what you're doing is you're looking at the total number of sales at a particular time. So these kind of queries can oftentimes be very much at the core of visualizing data. Okay. And then here, max is going to tell me what the max. So this one I'll do both, max and min, because they're both pretty much the same idea. It's going to give me the biggest number of all the numbers that it's evaluating and the smallest number. Okay, so in that case, if I want to know what's the biggest sale or the smallest sale, I can run these two queries. And I can see that the biggest sale is 800 and the smallest sale is 300. So there's min and max that will return the minimum maximum. So you see, pretty straightforward. Okay, it's just a matter of thinking, why would you want that information? And again, that's the great thing about SQL. Most of the SQL itself is pretty straightforward. It's more of a matter of you thinking what kind of information is important to you. So it's like more about you trying to identify the problem or question you're trying to ask, and then just figuring out how to express it in SQL. Okay, and let's go do the next one. Okay, so in this one, we're going to select salesperson. So we want to know the salesperson. Okay, and count. Basically, we're trying to figure out the number of sales for each salesperson. So notice I have to search for the salesperson because I want to do a group by. So the group by, what it does is going to group the results. So it's going to say, hey, show me the results, like do the count, but do it per salesperson. But in order for me to do it by salesperson, you have to make sure that that field is also something you're selecting. So I have to have a kind of salesperson in both places. So I'm saying, hey, give me the salesperson and count, and then group the results by salesperson. So it'll show me each salesperson and the number of sales they made, which each of them I think as one, because I don't think there was any names that I saw twice there. Oh, actually, Alice is there twice. Okay, so we'll see Alice there with 2 sales. So in that case, there we see, oh, actually Alice had 3 sales. I didn't see Alice with a 3rd sale. Oh, I guess she made another sale working for a different region, so she must have transferred at some point. Okay, but we can see Alice has 3 sales. Bob has 1 sale. Charlie has 1 sale. So this is where you can start seeing count being more useful. And you don't necessarily always want to know like how many sales you made. You want to say, hey, how many sales are we making per quarter, and taking a look at multiple quarters to see if the number of sales are growing, not just the size of those sales are growing. But you also want to see, hey, your salespeople, like, you know, who is contributing to that larger sales number. Okay. So there's that example. Let me clear this out. So stop over here and then little trash can there to clear all that out. Let's do the next one. Okay, in this case, we're looking for the region, okay, and sum. So we're trying to get the total amount of sales per region. So basically what this is doing is adding up the total sales, and that's going to become total sales. But since we're grouping it by the region, it's going to give me each region and the total sales attributable to that region. Okay, so the group by column, again, tells you how you want to group the results by. So instead of saying, hey, I want the results for all the records, put those records in different groups based on one of the fields that you selected. So it has to be a selected field, and do that. So in this case, we can see that the East has 600 in sales, North had 1,300 in sales. Okay, and this makes a lot of sense when you're thinking about sales, because when you're trying to assess sales, you want to try to look for trends, like, hey, where are we selling a lot? So in that case, hey, we might want to invest more marketing in that region. Okay, you know, which salespeople are performing really well, because we want to see what they are doing, that we can train the other salespeople so we can replicate their magic per se, these kinds of details. So again, using SQL, you can identify these things. This is the value of analytics. Okay. Next, let's go to here. Okay, so here we're taking a look at the average sales per salesperson. Okay, so essentially the same thing as we did with total sales earlier, but average, again, why would I care about average is that maybe, one person has a whole lot of sales because they had one really big sale and a lot of really small sales. Okay. So in that case, I would care about what their average is because I want to know what they're doing on a regular basis. And it'll help kind of, diminish the effect of outliers. An outlier is basically a extreme anomaly in your data. So essentially, like an outlier would be like if my average is 500 in sales, like a sale of 500, that's my average, but then I have one sale that's 10,000, well, that would be an outlier. It's not my normal. It's not even close to my normal. Or if I had a sale that was like 1, that would also be an outlier. So oftentimes when you just do a total, that it's not capturing the effect of outliers. So average can do that, and average can still be affected by outliers because, again, you can end up with a bigger average because of one outlying transaction, which is why sometimes you may prefer like a mean, although I don't think there's like a mean function, but there's different ways of kind of achieving that. But the idea is you may want to take a look at, okay, more regularly, what are you doing? Not just what you did on that one transaction. Okay. Wait, actually, let's run the query. So I hit stop, run. Okay, and you can see that Alice on average is doing about 633 in sales, Bob 700, Charlie 300. Okay. Okay, and one more to go. Okay, now we have the having keyword. Okay, so let's examine this query. So we're looking for the sum, basically the total sales for each region from sales. But we have to group by region, and the region has to have at least more than 1,000 in sales. Okay, so again, we're not grouping by all regions, only regions having 1,000 or more in sales. So that's what the having is, kind of adding this additional clause to your group by. So if I stop this and we do that, we run this, only the North region has had more than 1,000 in sales. The other regions did not make it. Okay, so I can get a quick view of like which are my high performing regions and basically what are their totals. Okay, and I can see, okay, whoever's on the list are my performers, whoever's not on the list, not my performers, kind of thing. So those are some queries of how you can use what's called an aggregate query. So again, basically doing these sort of addition, average, min, max type operations on different data in your table. Okay, and yeah. So that wraps up this. Again, you'll find the code for this in the ag.sql file when you click on the link to this REPL in the video description. So I'll see you all later. Have a great day and enjoy.